Hi, everyone, and welcome to La Dame d'Escoffier DC's Service and Sacrifice, Navigating Motherhood in the Hospitality Industry. We're so glad you could join us this afternoon. I'm Avery Meetre, co-second VP of Education and Community Outreach, and a mom to a very sweet and sassy 2-year-old girl. For anyone new to La Dame, we're a professional organization of women leaders in food, beverage, and hospitality, dedicated to supporting one another and giving back through mentorships, scholarships, and community outreach. Please consider attending our big fundraising event on Thursday, June 11th, the Dom Table, a showcase of talent and taste. Today is all about having a candid and honest conversation at how the industry can evolve to better support working mothers with our esteemed panelists. I'm going to let everyone briefly introduce themselves and start with Kerry.
Hi, I'm Kerry Brodie. I'm the founder and executive director of Emma's Torch, which is a nonprofit cafe and social enterprise that provides culinary training to refugees. And I am also the mother of three little sassy girls, Sophia, who's almost 7, Aya, who is 4, and Shachar, who is 1. And I'm going to send it over to Brittany.
Hi everyone, my name is Brittany and I am the creator, food blogger, and cookbook author at Brittany Breaks Bread. I am the mother of two littles. One is my oldest is 4 and my youngest is 2. And they are just as intelligent and rambunctious and wild as they want to be. But I'm really excited to be here today to learn and share my everyday life with everyone and how I manage both blog and trying to stay current on everything as well as be a good mom.
Hello, everybody. I'm Leah Culley. I'm the owner and founder of Sweet Almond, where we specialize in custom macarons. I am a mom of 4. I have 1 boy, 3 girls. My oldest, who's my son, he's almost 9. And then I have a 6-year-old, almost 4-year-old, and a 7-month-old. So as you can imagine, I'm very, very busy, have my hands full, and they're all different as we know. But I'm also excited to share and also hear everyone else's experiences and hopefully take something home to learn with myself.
Hi, I'm Johanna Hellrigl. I'm the chef and owner of Ama. We are a mission-driven restaurant in the Navy Yard, Capitol Hill area. We believe that health and sustainability go hand in hand, and so we're really focused on really being a case study for systemic change to make it as affordable and accessible as possible. I am a mother to a 5-year-old boy named Luca, and he is the most feral child I've ever met, and I love him absolutely so much. And everything that I do and everything I do for my advocacy and mission is because of him and becoming a mom. So excited for this conversation.
Amazing, thank you. And for those of you in our audience, please put questions in the chat box as we go along. We'll definitely have time at the end to answer some, if not all of them. So with that, let's get started. A lot of conversations about working motherhood focus on balance, but several of you pushed back on that idea when we had one-on-one calls. What does integration or a more realistic version of success look like in your lives right now? Brittany, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I think that's a tough one because I think it looks different to everybody and we're all in different, well, kind of the same industry, but different avenues. And so I think my version of success right now is just honestly being able to check things off of my to-do list, keep up with certain metrics, make sure my kids are fed, make sure I'm fed. Uh, 8 hours of sleep would be great. That's not always something I get, but we just roll with the punches. But I think my honest, uh, my unabashed version of success is my kids are healthy, I'm happy, business is running, and at the end of the day, everybody can smile and say, we did a good job today.
100%. Does anyone else want to comment on this one?
Yeah, I'll comment. I would just say, just to piggyback off of Brittany about, some seasons require more from the business. Some seasons require more as a parent. But one thing I feel like that's worked and helped me feel successful is for my kids and my family to, even though I'm working, to still see me. Even if that means like I'm on the couch with my laptop, at least, especially for children, it's not that they want to interact, but they just want to see that you're there. So if I could, do both at once, sometimes I feel like that, it helps. And, it helps me feel like I'm playing my role in both ends, I guess, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Before I opened Ama and like owning a 4,000 square foot restaurant is like no small feat every single day. I have currently a dishwasher that's down, and then, an employee didn't go in this morning. It's just like there's always chaos that you can't expect. And so it's like, how do you have tools in the toolbox to be able to deal with like everyday lifing? But before I opened, I read a book that was called like Balance is BS. Um, and I thought it was a really great example of like blending instead of looking for balance, and like how to blend your life. So like every day being able to leave the restaurant and go and pick up my son and then like come back. Like that is something that if I had a normal 9 to 5 job, I wouldn't be able to do every day. And so, even though it's hard and there's so many moments that make you feel like you're not succeeding, just being able to find ways to like blend, or like today taking a call on a walk instead of, to get some exercise, like just finding those little moments to give myself grace, and it might not always be perfect. I thought that that book was like a really helpful one, just to like not always look for the balance, but find ways to blend this like life passion that you have with the work that you're doing.
Yeah, I think just kind of yes anding to everything. I think very early on when I became a mom, somebody pointed me in the direction of, I think it's Nora Ephron, who talks about how there's like life is just juggling balls. Some of them are glass and some of them are plastic, and you kind of just got to figure out which those are. And I've been thinking about that a lot because I think it's different for each person. So I might see somebody and I'm like, wow, that mom, she is on the PTA and she is doing this, and I didn't know my child needed a white shirt today, and she sent her kid with two. Like, wow, for her, those are the glass balls. For me, it's actually like, yeah, that dishwasher is broken, and that's really what it is today. And I think that there's the big ones, but the being okay with those little ones, I think kind of accepting that, and accepting that like when something falls and breaks, it's not the end of the world. Um, I mean, metaphorically, do not drop your children, like all that. But I do think that that has made a huge difference. And I love that you started this question with like getting rid of that idea of balance, because I think that the striving for balance and falling short can be so demoralizing. And so just hearing from each of you and then recognizing like we're all finding that blend, which I think is so important.
100%. It's okay to not be able to do it all the time. Hospitality is built around caring for others, yet the industry has not always been designed to care for caregivers. What changes, big or small, would you make, or do you think would make the greatest difference for working parents in the field? Leah, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I can think of is just a little bit more humanity in schedules. Things happen, kids get sick, whatever the fire is that you have to put out at home, just remembering that we're human and our lives can't revolve around the job all the time, 24/7. And just having a little bit of grace in that regard.
I completely agree. I think, especially as a new mom with a lot of us don't get the quote unquote PTO because we have our own businesses, and sometimes that email will take 24 to 48 hours to respond to, or that content may be a couple hours to a day late. But just, I think the sheer idea of having grace is is greatly appreciated. Yeah.
Maybe I'm a little bit feisty today, but can I also, so because I think about this question a lot. So the way that, so I run Emma's Torch, which is I'm very grateful for, and also like affords me quite a lot of luxury in terms of like it's my own business, and so like I have some flexibility. And I also see our students who are entering the culinary industry trying to carve out what does it look like to be a line cook and have small children. And one of the conversations we've been having with our employment partners is like, you've got to make this your problem too. Like solving for childcare and solving for like having mothers in the workforce has to be everybody's problem. It's not a woman's problem. It's not a mom's problem. It's like it's an industry-wide problem. And so something I'm trying to do more of, and I'm curious if this has worked for anybody else, is kind of push that conversation of like, I need you to give me some grace. I also need you to help me come up with some solutions that are going to allow, for the workforce to continue to operate within the workforce, which is not always a comfortable conversation. But I think sometimes restaurant operators see making accommodations as like a nice to have, but how do we make that critical? Like how do we push so that allowing it to be possible for women to remain in the workforce and also have families is all of our problem. And so that's something that I'm trying to like, to your question of like, what is something the industry can do? I think maybe be a little bit more angry, maybe be a little bit more forceful on like, if you run a small business or a large business, like this is a critical issue to your economic success, not just a nice to have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I oh,
Oh,
sorry.
no, go ahead.
I go to UPS often, and there was a woman there who was pregnant, and I noticed she had her baby, and I hadn't seen her for about 2 weeks. I go to UPS again. She's there 2 weeks later. And I said, "Oh my gosh, you had your baby." And mind you, she's lifting boxes. She's on her feet for 8 hours, and my heart just sank for her because as a new mom, I did have the luxury of when I worked at a corporate job to have off for 3 months. Only 6 weeks were paid, but I had the luxury that I would have my job at the end of that term. And I don't think it's just something that's specific to this industry. I think as a country, not to be political, but as a country, like we really need to do a better job of supporting families, because fathers need it too. Um,
Well,
Perhaps you're
yeah.
absolutely on something because we do need to be more angry about it because it's a necessity it's critical to our health and being able to get up and do the job and bring in the money and do all the things and be a functioning adult. It's so much deeper than just sitting at home and trying to raise a kid. It's a cycle. To keep the machine running, we got to keep all parts well oiled. So yeah.
Well, to be political then, my restaurant is 4 blocks from the Capitol, which means that I am very much in the everyday life of politics in this city and how tense it is right now, and especially over the last 15 to 16 months. And, I do a lot of advocacy work and I'm on the board of the environmental working group. And I feel like I'm fighting every day for another thing that is like either trying to kill us or make our lives harder. And so, in the beginning of my journey in the past like 2 years on the Hill, like that I was really getting into some conversations. I was part of legislation. I did a hearing on childcare. I ended up being part of like the first 5-year fund and like everything we were trying to do to really like get some movement on this legislation. And it was like so demoralizing because it was also talking about our industry or people who work odd hours and really trying to find support. Because I think that is the one thing that I'll say is that there's not every industry deals with like the non 9 to 5 part that is so difficult about childcare. And, this bill was like, Pedersen, McBride, DeLauro, like everyone was like supporting it. That was this Democratic leader. But it's because the bill was like 99.9, actually it was probably 100% Democrats, like it just died at the stake, right? And so these moments become one of those like difficult things that in today's world, and especially in DC, like how can we find common ground because unfortunately what I learned is that you have to play the game. And as women, we've been playing the game forever. So we should really find the way to play this game. But you have to find ways to bring both sides to the table and find common ground in order to move the needle and see systemic change or at least see something push through. And so that has been one of those things that it's like, we can do all these grassroots efforts. We can have nonprofits. We can try to help, women in Ward 8. I've been doing some programming on produce prescriptions. But if like everything is relying on the nonprofit and the private sector to like actually figure this out, and like the policy from the top down isn't coming. So like I agree with Kerry that like if we aren't loud, like not a lot is going to move the needle. And so I think being loud with representatives on both sides and also supporting these local nonprofits and NGOs in the lack of time that we do have, but like every time we do more things that coalesce or bring community together, I feel like I've seen more shifts of systemic change or like little wins for us to be able to push it forward for, the next round of moms that are trying to do this. And so I just really resonate with the get loud because it's more important than ever right now.
It's wild to me that this is something that we would even have to fight for.
Yeah.
It should be
I mean, a
no.
lot of these things, right? Like, not to just, but like, for example, like there's a pesticide called paraquat that's banned in 70 countries, including China, that makes it. And yet we are still having to like fight legislation on this. And so it's like, it's wild to me that as a country, like we as moms have to fight so hard for like keeping our kids healthy, keeping our kids safe and not having guns in school, like having childcare, like there is just so many things that just like stack up against us. But I do feel like it doesn't mean we should feel defeated. We have to keep being vocal and loud because I do think that, moms can really change the world. And honestly, if they were running most of these governmental offices, like everything would be fixed by lunch. So, there's that.
No question.
100%. And also like what Kerry was saying too about other people that might not be caretakers, but just are in the organizations where they work with others that are mothers or fathers or whatever it is. I know I sat on another board and we had a panel similar to this, and it was actually another full like women's organization in food. And there were a couple men that I guess were at this conference as sponsors, and they were like ended up in this panel and they were standing up raising their hand being like, what can we do even though we're not parents or all that? And everyone was like, okay, that's a start. You're asking the right questions. Now follow through.
Or like, men, please stop asking the question of what we need to tell you to do. Like, just figure it out.
Take the mental load off. Just don't ask the questions.
I don't even know if I would trust that. Like, nope, I'll take it back. Nope.
Yeah, what you can do is like just nod and look pretty, nod and smile. We've got this. Yeah. Oh.
Several of you mentioned that becoming a mother sharpened your sense of mission and leadership. In what ways has motherhood changed how you build businesses, lead teams, or define the kind of hospitality you want to create? Johanna, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. The mission in restaurant now. I mean, I think, I grew up in the industry. My dad was a chef. He passed away from pancreas cancer. And so I think I firsthand saw like what kind of working the long hours and like the stress and the lifestyle kind of like did to him and his health. And so coming full circle back into the industry myself, even though I swore I wouldn't do it, I really wanted to try to flip the script on like what it means to be like a healthy and sustainable restaurant that like puts personal and planetary health together. Because, I kind of find that these like sustainable moments or like some of it can just be very hypocritical or very greenwashing. And I just think in today's world, we have to stop looking at things in silos, but rather as an ecosystem. And so even if you can't accomplish like all of the things, like how can it at least be like a wheel that makes sense? And so, the way that we tried to approach AMA was, how do we question everything that's kind of the current norm and really think through all of these different components from that perspective. But the driving force was, my son and wanting a restaurant that every single thing that I serve on the menu is something that I would serve him. But also knowing that I went through a really traumatic birth that was like 92 hours and resulted in a C-section in the midst of COVID. And so, the issues that I had with my microbiome and my gut health from that 5 rounds of antibiotics in the hospital and everything I went through afterwards, like it just really sparked an understanding of like how important filling my cup and taking care of my health would be towards like actually being the best leader that I can be. And really trying to figure out like how to nourish guests and like make them feel good while they're here, but also feel good the next day. And I think that was totally driven by becoming like a mom. I've always cared about this stuff, but like it just made it like, the fight of my life instead of just being something that I was just complacent about. So that was a big part for me.
Hmm. Does anyone else want to jump in?
I think it activated like a grind in me like none other. Like the what I can do in 24 hours is um not something that I think I could have ever done prior to having a kid. I quit my corporate job after I had my son. He was 3 months old, and I looked at him and I'm like, we're gonna do this. And like we're gonna go ham. And I can't necessarily say it changed the way that I ran or structured my business because like I said, 3 months in, it's kind of always been the same way since then. But um my grind is strong, and I have no problem, finding energy where other times I probably, or before I had kids, I didn't think I had it. So it definitely lit a torch under my behind.
I'm gonna agree and piggyback off of that, and say that it's also made me consider not just my time, but other people's time and being more purposeful with how I utilize my time, and being more empathetic to other people in their situations. Like as a mother, if you don't have patience, like you're gonna have to build some because they will test every bit of it all the way down to the core. So I think that's made me kind of be a little bit more grounded in how I deal with people in general. So how I, not necessarily structure my business, but how I operate as the operator. And when I'm talking to people or dealing with people or personalities and things like that, it's just kind of, I use those skills at home and at work.
Mhm.
I totally agree. I sometimes joke with my team, and it's a joke, that like being a mom just made me a worse leader, like just much worse. But it's actually that like I just don't take it as seriously because I have like the pie that is my life, that is my focus, has grown. And with every one of my kids, it's grown even bigger. And with, caring for older relatives, it gets bigger. And that means that like my willingness to cry in the walk-in, my willingness to completely, everything is terrible. We got one bad Yelp review. It's not. I just like I'm unwilling to allow that to make me into a less patient mother. And I think by extension, I'm unwilling to allow that to make me into a less patient supervisor and boss. Like we have a team, and I look at the other parents on our team and just everybody on our team really of like if we if we stop ourselves from allowing some of those small things that can become huge problems, if we stop those, then I think that we're better as an organization. But there is some level of which it stopped me from caring about things that if I had cared about them, it would have just become so much more toxic. So I am
Mhm.
grateful for my children for right now as I'm like eyeing the door and making sure that like they aren't home yet. Like I'm grateful for them for allowing me to take it all a little bit less seriously, even though it is serious and important work, which I think is a hard balance. But maybe balance is again not the right word.
100%. I feel like it really teaches you what a real emergency is at work versus what will be there tomorrow and how to prioritize that too. Um, Burnout came up repeatedly, not just from work, but from trying to do everything well. How have you learned to make decisions about what gets your energy and what have you had to let go of along the way? Kerry, you want to start us off?
Sure. A number of my friends just had their first child, and so they were asking me like, how do you do this? And I was like, here's what you do. You take the bar, whatever you think is the lowest you can imagine that bar, the standards that you hold yourself to, and just lower it. Like, oh, you think that? Just lower still. But I do think, especially when my oldest was born, it was early in the days of the organization, and it was like, and then the pandemic hit, and I honestly was so burnt out. And I felt like every minute that I was trying to save this business or working or doing all those things to like, I just felt like I was constantly pulling rabbits out of a hat. And I was resentful about it because it was taking me away from my child. And then when I was with my child, I had one hand in my phone and I was like, well, because I am here, I'm not doing this thing. And that spiraling, it's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think that once you start thinking about burnout, it becomes like you can't stop it then. It's like that train's already left the station. And so I think that a big lesson for me has been accepting on some level that like there's going to be seasons where it feels really hard and seasons where it feels really amazing. And there's going to be times where I am just like killing it. Like I have the birthday parties organized and the meals are packed and they're going to even eat some vegetables during the week. And then there's going to be times like next in 2 weeks, we're opening our new location in Maryland. And I am doing the best I can, but this is one of those seasons where my energy is going to be focused on that restaurant. And then that's where I think about one of the many privileges that I have is that I have family and friends that I can turn to and say, hey, I'm going to have to miss this, the 14th end of the school year, something or other next week. Can you go and cheerlead? And how wonderful for my children that they have other older adults in their lives that can do that. But I think in terms of burnout, it's before you reach that place, seeing who you can turn to and who can step in. I love when they say like it takes a village, but you also have to be a villager. And so recognizing that as well, like it will take a village to raise my child, and I will show up when my sister needs it or when somebody else needs it as well.
Yeah, I totally agree on that. I think that I like always was a natural born like caretaker, and like my nickname in high school and college was like Mama Joe. And so it's like something I've always loved to do is just like kind of be a mama to people. And in the last couple of years, I've been like, no, I'm gonna take care of myself. And I think one of the biggest things that I had to really learn is like inner child healing and like doing like some therapy and like things to really like understand like how to one protect my inner peace and know my value and my self-worth, knowing that I'm good enough and being able to set those boundaries and really actually kind of communicate those effectively, even if, I will be honest, like with my husband, did not set us up for him to like like, somehow I'm an encyclopedia to him for like anything. And I'm like, Google exists and you can figure this out. Like you lived 40 years before I ever came into your life. So I'm guaranteeing you can figure this out at some point without me. And so that boundary setting and the mental load, there's a great documentary, and I think it's a book too. It's called Fair Play. But it talks a lot about the mental load that we as women take on. And it's like, how can you use your voice to set boundaries and communicate where you need help? And yes, they're not going to deliver it like 99% of the times the way that you would do it. And like the 13 phone calls at the grocery like suck that they're asking all the questions, but like over time, like it'll become less hard. And like you've got to like do that because to run a business, to be a mom, to deal with everything you want to do, and it's okay to be ambitious and like want things for your life, right? And also make sacrifices for your children. But when it comes to like that village, and especially with like your partner, like being able to communicate those boundaries and also make time for yourself to fill your cup is, I think, so crucial to not burning out. Because I feel like we are just so used to being like, I can handle it. I've got it. I got it. I got it. And it's just like, you could, but like, should you, And I just think for anybody who's about to be a mom, like, if you can like train the partner from like day one, or if you're doing this solo, right? Like, how do you ask for that support firsthand instead of just taking it on all yourself? Because it's really important to just not take it on all by yourself. And those are key like things for when you also own a business, right? Learning to delegate and empower other people and equip them with the tools necessary to succeed and ascend into leadership roles. So like treating your home and your family that same way can like allow you to not burn out as quickly as you probably would if you're just taking it on by yourself.
Yeah, I think you're talking directly to me right now because as much as, as much as I'll preach the same message, but I struggle with it because I want to do it myself. I want, like, no, you're going to mess it up. Then I'm gonna have to clean it up anyway. That's kind of like how I feel. And not just at home, but at work too. I started as a solopreneur and then I had to give the reins to somebody. That was very tough, but it was an uncomfortable thing that we all have to get okay with, actually trusting somebody else. And if they mess it up, like, it's not the end of the world. Like, we can fix it, but I will not lie. I still struggle.
I mean, we're like multitaskers, we're
Yeah.
connectors, we're like all the things. And we can, as I said, we can push ourselves beyond the brink. It's just what I've learned, especially in my health journey, right? Is that like I feel better at 37 than I did at 27. And I'm sure as shit not going to go backwards anymore on like feeling like shit because I'm not taking care of myself. And there's going to be moments where I can't do as much, right? It's going to ebb and flow, but I'm just saying, like, if you recognize your self-worth and your value and you realize how precious your time is, like
Mm.
finding ways to delegate the tasks that might not be 100% perfected by those people, but the more you're training them, whether it's a partner or, a business partner, right? Like at some point they're going to get it because we sometimes just equip them to think that we're just going to handle it. And
Mm.
that is actually setting you up to not be able to sustain your life or sustain your business. And so, like just, the next thing you go to, just remember my words, like boundaries, like, and it's not to be like the thing we have a struggle with. I can just leave it with that. Like we sometimes struggle with so much empathy to the point where we think that we're being selfish by saying no about something. And like, excuse me, like, fuck that. Like if my, like that's not okay. Like we deserve to hold those boundaries and not feel guilty about it because we've asked for like us to be able to sleep in for an hour, you know what I mean? Instead of handling everything. And that's okay for us to really want to do without feeling the guilt or the selfishness or the shame like that surrounds it. And so if you can break that cycle, it can be very freeing. And it can still make you an incredible mother because you'll also be happier and you'll like in turn be just like, a better mom.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Boundaries.
don't know that I've ever been burnt out, but I do think that I've been very close to it. And I think you're absolutely right. Having a supportive partner there is like 1000% a game changer. But also, I'm the oldest daughter and I take everything on, and I am a chronic workaholic and I love my job. And if I feel stuck creatively, I do something else. And so, not to sound too frou-frou, but like if I feel stuck in one area, I try something else and work through that. And I think that that is a luxury. However, I also think that when I can't pull myself away from a specific task, whether it be with the job or something in motherhood or wifedom, whatever, um, I'm not the best communicator in saying that, hey, I'm overwhelmed. And so I think no matter how supportive your partner is, if they don't know because you haven't told them that you're feeling a certain way, and this is just me completely talking to myself, um, it makes it difficult. You make it even more difficult for yourself because you're not communicating your needs. And so I think boundaries are important, but it's also extremely important to also be able to communicate where you feel you're overwhelmed and where you need support.
Yeah, it's that communication part that I feel like is key and that's part of it. It's like it can be a boundary, but communicate why it's a boundary or why it's a no or why you need to delegate it
Sure.
because the more you're expressing yourself, like your words matter, you know what I mean? And like you said, we're easily the ones who can take it all on.
Hmm.
But I think we deserve more than just feeling like tired all the time, which I
Mhm.
feel like is the definition of motherhood.
100%. That's definitely been like some where I almost explode, where I'm like, what, you can't read my mind? And then it's like, no. But I also tell
Right.
my team all the time, I'm like, if you're not your best version of yourself, your work will suffer and the other ones around you will too. So it's like you can't expect to be on all the time, but if you're not taking care of your mental health and your well-being, it'll
Mhm.
start bleeding into other aspects of your life, whether work or life.
Yeah.
What does a truly supportive workplace look like in hospitality, not just in theory, but in the day-to-day realities of scheduling, leadership, and team culture? Johanna, do you want to take this as a restaurant owner?
Yeah, I think when we said the thing about like flipping the script on like kind of the things with the restaurant, it was really thinking through, what would make people happy in the space, right? Like, can we feed people and nourish them like the same ingredients that we're giving our guests and make sure that they have a good meal for family meal? Can we look for opportunities for giving people 100% covered health insurance? And, actually, as of June 1st, we're giving people 100% covered talk therapy for mental health benefits. And like, those are like those pushes that I think are so important because just like we're talking about us as owners and like being able to fill our cup before we can take care of others, like I want the same for my staff and my team. And you know, when I told you about my microbiome being something that I became so passionate about, like everybody for Christmas got gut health tests. And it's like, yeah, I gave everybody a poop test for Christmas, but like, it's very fitting to the mission of like, I want you to be empowered with the knowledge and wherewithal of like what's going on in your body. Because if I'm asking you to communicate to guests, like, about the mission and what we stand for and why it matters. Like, I want you to feel like you're given this knowledge. And there's so many people that walk into this building who work here that either have a family member who's gone through cancer or, know somebody who's had a heart attack or, has a chronic disease or have had so many dietary restrictions, or just like have not felt good when they eat food. And, I've had people who started working here that were like, oh no, I can't eat during my shift because like it'll weigh me down and I'll feel terrible afterwards. And I'm like, wait, like let's dissect that because you should feel energy and fuel from food. You know what I mean? And it's okay to like once, have a good drink and whatever and not feel great the next day, but that's like the exception and not the norm. Like your normal day should be fuel. And so I think that that was a huge part of, what drives me is this empowerment should not just be left for like the elite or the luxury of disposable income. It should be like something that's affordable and accessible to everyone to nourish their body, their mind, and take care of themselves. And so those are like kind of the things that drive me to keep going because the more we coalesce together, the more the supply chain can shift from the demand, like the more we can see this become more of the norm, right? If more people signed up for Oyster Sunday, which is the platform that we work with, right? That is specifically, I've been working with them since before we opened to create these mental health benefit programs. Like the more I kept being loud, the more that everybody else kept joining in, the more it was realistic that they could create these programs for us. So like that's, I think, the driving thing I'll leave people with is like, you really can use your voice to like get the thing that you wanted to manifest for your team and to create that healthy culture, even if it takes time and you won't open with it or start with it the way that you wanted to. So, yeah.
Did anyone else want to follow that?
I think that there's like sometimes when we have conversations with employment partners, and this is like more on like the left, like more on the like, what are some tactical things? There's like kind of an idea of like, no, we couldn't cover health insurance or we couldn't cover paid family leave. And like we have locations in New York, we have about to have a location in Maryland, which have very different leave structures that are mandated by the state. And we decided that obviously we're going to keep our leave structures consistent because giving birth in New York and giving birth in Maryland are like not actually substantially different. Just one in one state you are paid for like you have paid leave and the other you don't. And so I just think that sometimes like there are very basic things that sound impossible until they're done. So I think like Oyster Sunday is an amazing platform. There's a lot of like employee assistance programs that like are really helpful on like the broader mental health side and have access that we're also enrolled in them. But then I think there's like little things like predictive scheduling. That's actually mandated by law in New York City. Maryland is like doing some work on that as well. Just like let everybody know what their schedules are going to be, and like for moms, that's critical because you need to know your schedule so you can plan for childcare. Um, there's like new prenatal care hours that are being allocated in New York as like a paid benefit, and that's something that like restaurants can absorb. You can absorb the cost of 20 extra hours of your hourly wage staff to allow them to go to prenatal, like routine prenatal exams. Like do those little things. Like that is not the margin that's going to make or break your restaurant. If 20 extra hours is your problem, well, you're going to lose that staff member anyways. So like you've got bigger fish to fry. And so I think sometimes like maybe I'm being cynical, but like those very small concrete challenges and like putting them into dollars and cents and saying like, yeah, for every person that you push out of the workforce, you lose, it's like $15,000 to hire someone. Like that's a problem. You do not want staff turnover. And so articulating that as well. So those are kind of, maybe those are like the small incremental steps as we get loud and as we push for like these bigger systems. But I think that for us, those are like, seem like the low hanging fruit that if we could solve for that, then yeah, we need better options for childcare for people who don't have a 9 to 5. Honestly, we need better options for childcare for all people. Um, but if we can start with a low hanging fruit, then maybe we can make space for those bigger challenges.
There was often a narrative that motherhood is a professional limitation. Have there been ways that being a parent has actually made you stronger, more effective, or more creative in hospitality? Brittany, you want to start us off with this?
So I'm not in hospitality,
Mhm.
but in a way I do service an audience or my readers. And I'm not sure how being a mother has changed it, but also again, just to play into what I was saying earlier, it's made me work so much harder. Um, in the sense that I feel like I always can dig up energy from somewhere, to put in that extra effort to make sure that my business is successful. I'm still a solopreneur, and so it is just me. And so I will send out that extra email to generate more traffic to the site, or I will post that Instagram reel, or I will, reach out and pitch another brand deal to see if, we could work together as an extra stream of revenue. I will, find the energy somewhere to hit post on an Instagram story just to let people know, hey, I'm still alive and we're still kicking, we're still going. Go to the site, make a recipe. I think that that's kind of how it changed. I think before I had kids, I was a lot more carefree, and I think I had more of an online presence, but it wasn't nearly as structured. And so now I have more of a schedule. Um, I have, just deliverables and goals that I set for myself now that I have kids, because I could easily see myself getting deep into motherhood and kind of throwing the business aside and then coming back to the business and saying, "Oh my God, where's my money?" And so it's just made me more uniform, more structured, and yeah.
I'm gonna say I think it's just to piggyback off earlier, like saying that I feel like my patience has increased, but it's also made me more, I think, effective in how I communicate with people, specifically like a customer, somebody who if you're in the hospitality industry, you deal with difficult people sometimes all the time. But it's helped me be more creative in how I handle situations. And truthfully, sometimes you have to treat people like kids. You kind of have to, talk sweetly and kindly, to kind of bring people down. It's an everyday thing that you have to do with kids and sometimes a spouse or whoever. But yeah, it's definitely crossed over into the business as well.
Definitely. Um, and then Leah, while I have you, why don't you kick us off with what do you hope the next generation of hospitality leaders, especially women entering the industry now, will do differently than previous generations?
Oh man, I think just like encompassing everything that we've talked about, just not normalizing the chronic burnout, the whole, burn it down complex where it's just like, what's here is here. Like this is where your energy needs to be. Like, do you want to be successful or do you want to be a parent? Pick one. Just kind of moving away from that and just again being more human in how we deal with people, specifically mothers, women entrepreneurs that you know we want to do it all. We want careers, we also want to be moms, but like I don't think you can't do it all. I think there are certain limitations sometimes, but for the most part, I think there is a way, especially like we talked about having a village, there's a way for you to be able to have it, everything that you want. And so just not being scared of like going for that. And hopefully, the previous generations, haven't damaged us too much. But I think that the ladies here and all of us, how we've, talked through some of this stuff here, like the future generations, I feel like will be better equipped.
Who wants to follow that?
I think that something that I'm always like that I think a lot about is like how rare, like you read about like Julia Childs, or you read about like all of these early women in that who like were able to monetize and to get kind of the recognition and get the flowers for the work that women have been doing for centuries. And so sometimes it makes me angry because I'm like, come on, like everybody talks about learning from their mom how to cook and then they make bank. Like, what about the other women in their kitchen? But then on the other hand, it gives me like a lot of hope because I think about like there's been so much progress, and a lot of that progress was really hard won. It was hard won by women who had to deal with a lot of BS that like I fortunately have never had to witness, or like I know like when I was in culinary school was when there was um, just like a real moment of reckoning, and there should be more moments and there always will be, but like a real moment of reckoning around like sexual harassment in restaurant culture, and like the stopping of aggrandizing the like abusive chef as like, well, they're just the like always male tortured soul, and so it's okay if they throw a cast iron skillet at the people who are doing a stage, or like all that nonsense. And I think about like I didn't have to go through that. Like a lot of that has already, or is less and less acceptable. It's still a huge problem, but recognizing that and then saying, okay, so what's, since I have that luxury and I have that privilege, what am I going to leave for the, like, what am I going to do for the next group of women? And I think the big thing that I would really love to see is that it's just not exceptional. Like, I don't want it to be rare to be a woman in hospitality and to have children. And again, like, I'm hospitality adjacent. I get to work with a lot of female chefs who are beginning careers and have and are mothers and like have like a lot of other barriers to entry. But I want to like kind of end the exceptionalism of that. Like I want really average female chefs to be able to have amazing careers and be mothers, just like really average male chefs historically have been able to do. And so I have some hope for that because if we don't have to fight some of the other fights that like luckily the generations ahead of us behind us did, then maybe that's what we can do for the next generation.
Yeah, I agree. I think as a content creator, a lot of people expect that when you have children, that's the only thing that you can do is just be a mom. And I'm like, no, I'm still a person. I'm still me. I still have my own wants and needs and my own goals and desires. And I hope that the next generation learns that duality is good. Because, what you see is partially curated. Um, and so I hope that we can get back to being real and accepting people as whole beings and not just what we perceive them to be.
Um, yeah, I think one thing I have a couple of things, but one thing I would like to see is the obsession with accolades. kind of not being what everyone is like focused on, right? Like James Beard, Michelin, 50 Best, like not every hospitality, but I feel like the like male competition environment has like made that like the thing that everybody focuses on. And I think we kind of lose the option of like seeing maybe these as platforms rather than accolades, in terms of like their significance, like to reach more chefs and inspire them. But like remembering why we do this. And I think we could use more like mama energy in restaurants where we're like nourishing and taking care of people instead of like 30 tweezers to make like the perfect dish. Like, like I just think we've like sometimes lost the mark of like wanting to really think about like what drives us to be here. A lot of it is like the food that we're cooking we're really passionate about, or it could be like the interactions with guests and like the everyday, like creating somebody like having an environment that makes people feel happy every like there's more like simple reasons to do it. And then when it comes to seeing systemic change in our industry and seeing a different way for this industry to drive, I just want to see more women pioneering the solutions rather than just being part of them. I think that I gave a TED talk on plastic in the restaurant industry, and it was a conversation that we're not really having about like what's happening behind the kitchen past and just like what we're really facing when it comes to some of these plastic chemicals. And we focus a lot about what we're hearing to take care of our children at home and like what Tupperware we're using or what bottles we're using. We're making so many like decisions all the times as mom to like keep our kids like healthy and happy. And if we could put the like same care into our industry and also not have it be that hard to do, right? Because like obviously there's a lot of roadblocks to it, but I just feel like more of that mama energy could like actually create more nourishing environments, more changes for our industry, and really allow us to pioneer these solutions because we are multitaskers, we are nurturers, we are people that like have this ingrained in us. And I'm like, not to go on the like male female chef thing, but it's just like sometimes like the connecting points that we can put together are actually more efficient and effective solutions than some of our male counterparts. And so if we start to like have that self-worth and value to be like, no, I want to pioneer this solution, or I want to lead this, or I want to make this happen, and put some more of that mama energy that we put in home at our places and let people really see that. Like I think the things that people will care about, like what placement you have on a list or how many accolades you have, like won't matter as much because of how people really feel in your hospitality spaces or how your food makes them feel. And so, yeah, I just want more of that. And then maybe we collectively take down Yelp and Google and all the review systems. So we never have to deal with them again. That's my other goal.
If anyone in the audience has questions for us, feel free to drop them in the chat. We have a couple minutes. And if we don't have any questions, I think this was awesome. And I want to thank you guys so much for being a part of it and for sharing your insight and expertise. And thank you to those in the audience for joining us today. If you enjoyed today's programming, please consider donating to La Dame d'Escoffier DC to help us continue our mission of mentoring, supporting scholarships, and giving back to our local food and hospitality community. And don't forget to purchase a ticket to the Dom's Table, a showcase of talent and taste on June 11th, where we'll be offering a lively night to sip, savor, and explore tasting stations featuring inspired food and wine pairings from our remarkable members. And finally, keep an eye on your inbox if you registered for the session because you will be receiving a recording of today's panel.
Avery, can I jump in here? It's Lori
Yes, of
Gardner.
course. Oh,
Hi.
Lori Gardner, our president, is on the phone as well.
I just hopped on about 15 minutes ago because I am watching my 3-year-old granddaughter while my son and daughter-in-law are working. So it was kind of apropos in terms of why I had to miss this. And I know there's others who wanted to be on here and couldn't. So we'll get this recording out far and wide to others who can benefit, because just the conclusions I heard in the last bit of this were just exceptional. And I was so excited, and I'm so excited to hear this panel. So thank you to all who participated. And as Avery said, please join us on June 11th. It's really going to be incredible. So thank you to all of you.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for having us.